to the Obtuse Angles podcast with Kyle and Jeremy. Kyle Fields, former indie worker, current stand-up comedian, podcaster, by God, radio broadcaster. Jeremy, bam, bam, boom, boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Iron Mike, the professor, the southern dandy, flyboy, the golden child. 10 minutes on either side of putting a ham in the smokehouse stack. Lee Sutherland. Also, a comedian, a podcaster, an IT man to the dang old stars. And today, my fellow podcast true crimer, as we get into the nitty gritty that is the dirty underbelly of the New Jersey mafia hitman scene of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. We're talking about the Iceman. Jeremiah, what's going on?
I'm really excited about this episode. It's going to be a pretty good one. I spent a lot of time researching about Chuck Liddell, kind of looking into his past and seeing, learning about a lot about what kind of fighter he was. And I think it's going to be a really good one.
Here's what's funny about this is I texted Jeremy a couple of days ago, or I don't know, last week, and I said, hey, you want to do an episode on the Iceman? And he was like, yeah. At no point did his real name of Richard Kuklinski ever come up. So, yeah, it'd be hilarious if Jeremy spent a solid week watching every fight of the Iceman Chuck Liddell in preparation for this podcast.
Here's a fun
fact. We had
fact.
Chuck Liddell. Yeah.
Did you know that Chuck Liddell is actually a 2009 UFC Hall of Famer? Did you know that?
I was not aware of that. I'm sure that he's not aware of it anymore either. If you've seen some pictures or interviews with him recently. We had him on the morning show, and I've told this before, but I'll tell it again because it's a hilarious fucking story. He was talking about his autobiography, which I'm sure that he wrote every word of. And he's like, oh, man, it's a really good book. I read it, We went, hold on, wait a minute. You read it? You wrote the motherfucker. What do you mean you read it? God damn.
Yeah. That's like when the meathead jock turns in the essay that he was supposed to write, that he fucking cornered some little nerd in the hallway and made him write for him. The teacher was like, you did a wonderful job on this, Davey. And he's like, well, I read it. It seemed like it was pretty good.
Was it, it's not UFC, it's the promotion that's on like the Paramount channel right now. Not Strikeforce. Bellator, yeah. Didn't he fight somebody in Bellator like relatively recently? And it was just it was like sad.
It was the third fight with Tito Ortiz. And in their first encounter, man, God, he fucking ate Tito Ortiz's lunch. I mean, he teed off.
Yeah, but how long ago was that?
How long ago was that? 2006, maybe? 2005.
Okay, and even that was towards the twilight of old Chucky D's best times, I would assume, right? I mean,
no, that was his heyday. His heyday was pretty much from like 2003 to 2007 or so. In the UFC, he was an amazing fighter. At one time, he might have been the greatest fighter on the planet. I mean, he was scary.
No,
he was knocking people out left and right. It was insane.
But this fucking Bellator fight was how long ago? Like at what age?
Oh, it was a couple years ago. Yeah, it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Chuck Liddell, who was punch drunk as fuck. I mean,
he lost his chin. He lost his chin is what happened. I mean, you saw that. You saw early on in the Randy Couture fight, the second or third time they fought. Couture is not a knockout artist. He's a wrestler, and he knocked out Chuck Liddell. So that was the beginning of the end when you started to see that his chin was going glass. It was rough.
Sure, and that last fight, though, bro, I mean, he looked like, in Street Fighter when your character gets beat the fuck up for a while, and then you stand there going, It was like that the whole time.
Did he have, like, the birds and shit flying around his head and everything? Like
I saw cartoon stars literally surrounding his head. It was the craziest fucking thing. So, no, we are not going to be talking about the Iceman Chuck Liddell, who we could probably spend the whole episode on, honestly, doing that. No, we're talking about, I mean, dude, this motherfucker, Richard Kuklinski, We just honestly don't have the time. Taking a look at Murderpedia, just running the numbers, and yes, I've checked it on all of the fucking documentaries and shit that I've read and you've read. He was a serial killer. That's the thing, is he was a hitman for the mafia. He died in prison, sadly, in 2006. I know. Don't cry on me.
Sadly.
I know. Not to give it away, right?
Yeah.
But he was active for fucking ever. His confirmed number of victims, nobody knows. The only confirmed number that we have is 6, although it is probably well over 100. The Iceman himself says that he killed over 200 people, and that might be true, even though some of the stories have been refuted, but it's all he said, she said, because it's all mafia shit. There's no way. And he killed people with crossbows. He shot him. He choked him to death. He stabbed him. One of his favorite ways was cyanide. He put it in their burger. He'd walk down the street and he had a little fucking spray gun and he would act like he would sneeze and he'd spray that cyanide into a guy's face. As a matter of fact, the first time that he ever used cyanide wasn't even on a contract kill. It was just, hey, will this work? And he found an overweight man in his 50s who it would appear like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna die of a heart attack any fucking second. So he does the gimmick, and the guy takes 4 steps, like at the end of Kill Bill 2, and he fucking falls down, and nobody knew a goddamn thing.
Man,
because
Richard
they thought it was a heart
Kuklinski,
attack.
he's the only serial killer I thought, okay, he's very scary. There's been a lot of killers who've had that icy sort of persona. I mean, look at Richard Ramirez. He talked about how he loved killing, but his shit was so over the top edgy. Like, he was like a 13-year-old who brought pictures he printed offline of some random 4chan thread to school. But Richard Kuklinski, you can tell from the Iceman tapes, which we'll be referencing a lot during this episode, he said he didn't care either way whether people lived or people died. He said, like, he's the only one I've ever seen where I believe.
Are there any murders that you committed that haunt you, that you just sort of you feel and you
Nothing haunts me. No murders haunt me. Nothing. I don't think about it.
I think because the persona of the Iceman is, he was this, maybe not a good fucking husband, obviously, but he was a great husband and a good father, and he never killed unless it was a contract kill. That's bullshit. He beat the fuck out of his wife.
He was a degenerate piece of shit. Yeah,
he broke her goddamn nose over dinner one night.
Well,
as a matter of fact, his teenage daughter came home late one night, and to punish her, he killed her dog. He fucking killed her dog.
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing because that's funny.
Oh, no, I know.
That's terrible. It's fucking horrible.
So was he a hitman? Yes. Was he the greatest hitman of all time? I mean, he got caught, so maybe not. But let's go ahead and say yes. But he was a fucking stone cold serial killer.
Yeah.
He killed a ton of people who were not even affiliated in any way with the mafia. We talked about the first time that he used cyanide to kill a guy right there. That was an innocent guy. First time he ever used a goddamn crossbow. This is a famous story. He says he's in New York City and he's sitting in his car and he's in the goddamn driver's seat and the window's down and he sees a guy walking by and he was just curious, can I use a crossbow to kill somebody on a contract kill? So he finds a random guy and as the guy's walking by his car, Iceman goes, hey, you know where the so-and-so is? And when the guy bends down to talk to the Iceman who's sitting in his car, he pops him in the head with a crossbow. The fucking bow goes halfway through his goddamn head, and then he just disposes of the body. He did that all the time. He said that he would get away with just killing homeless people, and that's what he would do. He would experiment on homeless people, and the police didn't give a fuck because they're homeless guys. Who gives a shit? Good, I'm glad they're gone.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I always thought they called him the Iceman because of his persona, the whole ice in my veins and remorseless thing.
Yeah.
They called him the fucking Iceman because they found one of his victims in a freezer and he had attempted to slow and decay process of the body to throw off the timeline of when the murder was committed. Like,
he did, and he
was a murder scientist.
He was. As a matter of fact, the guy that they found, the only reason that they knew that he had been frozen is it happened to be a hot summer day. The body that he dumped was wrapped in a trash bag, which kind of insulated it. The cops got there quickly, and when they opened up the guy's chest, they saw ice was inside of the guy's ribs. So they were, and plus, the reason that he would do this is he would throw off the time of death. The guy that they found with the ice in his goddamn chest, he died 2 years earlier. The Iceman killed him, put him in a freezer for 2 years, then shoved him out in the goddamn hot summer day. And it's funny because the cops went, wait a minute. So he has ice in his chest, and he's wearing the same clothes that he was wearing when his family last saw him. Either he didn't change his clothes in 2 years, or there's some chicanery afoot. My money's on the chicanery.
Chicanery all day.
Dude, and again, when you look at serial killers, every single one of these episodes that we've talked about these motherfuckers, you can go back obtuseangles.libsyn.com. Spodcast. It's on Spodcast. Apple Stitcher. Goddamn. All the shit. All the shows are just like this. They're #evergreen man. We talk about pop culture, pro wrestling, rock and roll, serial killers just like this one. But on all those previous episodes where we've talked about these serial killers, they have a shitty upbringing. There's usually a head injury. There's no head injury here, but oh my God, did he have a bad upbringing? I'm telling you, when it comes to fucked up parents, I don't know, the Iceman might have number one, bro.
It's funny how a lot of these guys all have these crazy fundamentalist, super religious upbringings, and Iceman is no different. He stated in the Iceman tapes interviews that he was actually an altar boy. Here's what I don't understand. Here's what I don't understand is, are people still making their kids be altar boys, or like making your son be an altar? Is that still happening? When is being an altar boy ever, like, they're going to do one of two things? They're going to get molested, and then they'll grow up to either kill themselves or molest other people, or they'll just grow up to be one of the most prolific serial killers in the fucking mafia in New Jersey.
One of the two.
Yeah,
that's the old.
That's all they can do.
A shout out to all of our good Catholic listeners who really appreciate all that right now. I think you're either going to grow up to. God.
No, look, I jest. Listen, I jest.
Sure, but
there's a lot of evidence to support these claims.
No, you're right. And his dad was a fucking lunatic. His mom was a piece of shit. And she worked 2 jobs to provide for the family because the dad was an alcoholic who would show up sometimes. He'd be gone for long stretches of time. Sounds like he had the best life ever. Am I right? But she would beat Richard, but that has nothing to do. That's got nothing on his dad. His dad would come in, fucking start throwing taters. Left and right, boom, 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 brother. Bip, bip. He'd give old goddamn Richard an Irish whip. He'd hit the fucking couch, come back. He'd drop down. Richard had to kick him in the head. It was crazy, bro. They were running fucking spots like crazy.
His dad was throwing powder and it was awful.
It was Memphis, dude. They was fucking, the fireballs in his goddamn eyes. So, Richard has a brother, and by the way, if you want to know how great the parenting skills of the Iceman's father were, Richard's brother, when he's like 25, goes to prison because he molests a young girl, then threw her and her pet puppy off the top of a building. God damn.
See what happens when you make your kids altar boys? One became I'm telling you, it's all there. One became a molester, and the other one became a killer. That's the only two things you can ever.
You know what's so fucked up is I'm watching one of the documentaries, and they tell that story of Richard's brother throwing the little girl and the puppy off the top of the building. And when I hear that, I swear to God, I think, oh my God, was the puppy okay?
I know, that's exactly what it's weird, man. And I think it's because especially on this show, we talk so much about people being murdered that we hardly bat an eye at it anymore, but the rare occasion that an animal being hurt or killed comes up, and we're like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Richard did that all the time, by the way. He killed a lot of kittens and puppies when he was a kid. He would tie the dogs to the back of vans and buses, and he said, you watch the dog, it runs, it gets tired, it gets drunk, it dies. I got tired of it, That's what he's fucking, there's just no emotion. He said he used to throw kittens in a goddamn heater and he would shut the door and he would look in, he would watch the kittens try to get out and they would all burn alive, obviously. And as he's telling the story, he goes, yeah, one almost got out. It came right up to the door. Like, god damn. Jeez. This man is fucking evil. So his daddy is working so stiff one night that he up and fucking... his daddy was, he's putting his brother in a sugar hole. He's working so goddamn stiff one night that he kills Richard's brother. Killed him.
Did his dad get a receipt for it? Is my question.
Well, I'm sure the next time that he worked Richard, Richard gave him a little receipt. That's how it works in the business, right? When the cops come, they tell the cops, "Oh man, you wouldn't believe our son fell down the goddamn stairs and now he's dead. Isn't it crazy?"
Yeah, and this was this was the 40s, the early 40s, so the cops would believe it because basically the only police investigation there was in the 1940s was that what happened here? See, and they'd be like, "Oh, my wife, she shot herself right in the back, right between the shoulder blades. It was crazy." And they're like, "Well, that's what happened then. Print it up."
Yeah.
Like that's, there was no investigation.
They'd be saying that as they were walking out the door to go to the sandwich shop. "Oh, that's what it looked good. Well, I'm glad this is all taken care of. All right, you fill out the paperwork, young man."
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this would have been the 1950s because Richard was born in 49, so obviously he is fucked all the way up. One of the Iceman tape interviews I was watching, and what they are, go check them out if you're interested in this motherfucker, the Richard Kuklinski. The Iceman tapes were 3 interviews HBO did with Richard. Once in the 90s, 2 more in the 2000s. One was a few years before he died in prison. And you can tell that Richard loves the fucking attention. Have you noticed that? Because if you go back and you check out, the first tape, there's no emotion. He's very professional about talking about these kills. And then by the time you get to the last tape, you could tell he started buying into the gimmick. Like he started believing his own gimmick.
Became Taz. Yeah.
He became Taz. Exactly, yeah. And there was no Rob Van Dam in prison to be like, pick a hand. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he's sitting, because in that last interview, he was like, yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care who I killed. And it's like, nah, bro, come on.
A Taz without a Rob Van Dam is a dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
Mo, what was it like to cut somebody up with a even though the guy was dead, how did it feel to cut some guy up with a chainsaw?
Well, I didn't have any feeling one way or the other. That just happened. That's the way it had to be.
Messy.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Did it make you sick?
No. I've had requests where the guy wanted the guy's tongue cut out. And he also wanted his tongue put in his rear end. So I believe there was a definite point he wanted to get across.
So Richard was this tall, lanky kid, and as we later find out, Richard grows to be like 6'4". I mean, he's a beast though. Like he's goddamn 300 plus pounds, whatever. He's goddamn not tugboat, but in between him and Earthquake, I guess, big motherfucker. Anyway, but he's a big motherfucker. But he wasn't a big motherfucker when he was a kid. He was a lanky boy, and his mom used to dress him in clothes that were too big because she wanted to save money. She knew that he would grow into the clothes. Parents, don't do that. So Richard got bullied all the fucking time until one fucking day he just snaps. And Richard goes upstairs to the closet and he grabs the goddamn wooden pole that you hang your, gimmicks on. Some people call them shirts. And he's got this goddamn gimmick. He's got the pole, brother. He's got this international object. And he's walking downstairs and he sees the leader of this gang of kids who was giving him shit. And Richard pulls this goddamn pole. And the kid says, "What are you going to do with that pole?" He goes, "What are you going to do with that, Pollock?" Which that's what you want to do to the man that has the weapon. You call him a slur.
Yeah,
what
for
are you gonna
sure.
do with that? What are you gonna do with that gun, you greasy dago? Come on, huh? Come on. So Richard, hadn't been taught how to work with a gimmick yet, and fucking boom, knocks. And he says that when the kid falls down, he goes into a blind rage and he beats the kid. I mean, again, this is Richard's a child, right? He beats this kid to death. And Richard thinks, oh my God, they're going to know it's me. And apparently, it happened at night, so there weren't any witnesses. But of course, he just assumes, the kid gets beaten to death on my front sidewalk. The cops are going to know it's me. Well, as Jeremy pointed out before, this is the 1950s, so nobody gave a fuck about nothing back then.
No.
And Richard says that as he's looking out the window, 3 days have passed, and after that 3 days, he realized that he's not going to get caught because again, it's the 50s. And he says that he's watching the rain wash the chalk outline of his first victim's body away, and he realized that then, I like doing this. And then he goes and he finds the other kids in the gang and he beats them all up. He's a fucking lunatic. And then he grew up, and as he's growing up, he's becoming a goddamn pull shark. So this motherfucker is living every Martin Scorsese movie at once. Can we say that?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair assessment, I think.
A couple of people realized, that he was hustling him in pool. One time, a guy takes him aside, and Richard beats him to death with a goddamn pool cue. Yeah, he loved his gimmick. He definitely had a gimmick, didn't he?
Yeah.
We got into an argument, a fight, and I hit him with a cue stick. A few too many times. And he died.
How'd you feel after when you found out he had died?
I had felt very bad. Very, very bad. I was upset. I didn't mean to do it, actually. But surprisingly, I felt sadness, and after a while, I felt something else. I didn't feel sad. It was sad along with some sort of a rush that I had control. And if you mess with me, I guess if you mess with me, I'll hurt you.
And the crazy thing about him is that I think he was so hard to capture for so many years. He was so hard to investigate because he had a different means of murder for everybody he murdered. Like
there was no pattern.
He wasn't the strangler.
No
he wasn't
pattern.
the shooter. There was no pattern to it at all.
One of the Iceman tapes, have you seen the one where he's interviewed by the psychologist in prison? And the psychologist gives the breakdown and how Richard has this antisocial personality disorder, which means that there is no remorse. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. And there's like a 1% of the population has this. Right. And then 2% of the population also has this thing that allows you to be, calculating about it. And you can basically what, sociopathic politicians possess. Right. So he says that a very small percentage of the population has both, which basically allows you to be manipulative and do whatever the fuck you want without any consequences in your mind. And that's what happened. Is it was a serial killer. And basically, there are a lot of kids who do have that, possess that little sliver psychologically. And if they come up in happy homes, they grow up to be, maybe not politicians, but you know what I mean? Like fucking bomb disarmers and you know what I'm saying? Like people who actually do shit good in life.
Yeah.
Listen to me, do shit good. People who don't use the phrase, quote, do shit good. That's what they grow up to be. But Richard he got away with it for so long, again, like we said, because he killed people differently. He froze the bodies. He got rid of the bodies more often than not. Remember, he tells the story about one of his associates that he winds up killing. He shoots him several times, and he puts the guy in a goddamn barrel, and he was so tall that he had to slice his fucking ligaments in his legs to shove it all inside of the barrel. And the barrel just so happens to be right next to a bar that he used to go to all the time. And he said, oh yeah, every day I'd walk by that fucking barrel. Every day I walked by that barrel. And he goes, eventually one day, that barrel wasn't there. I don't know where it went. And that fucking wild?
He's almost. He walks a careful line. He walks a very thin, careful line. He's almost over the top. He's almost unbelievable to the point of, oh, you're just saying a bunch of shit you saw in a movie. I'm pretty sure every hitman you've ever seen in any movie was based off Richard Kuklinski.
Absolutely.
Good chance of it.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, if you enjoy the Hitman video game franchise, where you have to kill people in variously creative ways, make it look like an accident and not get caught, you owe Richard Kuklinski. I mean, like,
first of all, get psychiatric help. But secondly, you owe Richard
absolutely.
Kuklinski. Yeah.
We talked before about, in our Ed Gein episode, how, the legend of Ed Gein has created so much amazing art, be it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or, goddamn, literally any slasher movie ever. And it's like, if all of that great art came from the deaths of two husky women, I'm joking, but I'm not.
Is it sadder? Is it sadder because or is it less sad because they're husky?
Oh, Jeremy.
No, I'm asking you the question. Is that what you're saying? Like, if they were thin and attractive, you'd be like, this is a fucking travesty.
I can't believe, does the fact that I've seen pictures of both of those women play into why I'm saying? Of course it does, but I'm not saying.
You're going straight to hell. You're going right. You're not even going to die first. Like, the ground's just going to open up and you're going to go to hell. That's it.
And it would work the same way if they were attractive men too. Let's be honest. Okay. If it was some goddamn smart, chiseled Cro-Magnon looking motherfucker who was going to go on to make babies to win the Super Bowl, that's going to be more important than, somebody like me. Oh, goddamn, he deprived the world of more dick jokes. Oh, God. Oh, God. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
What a loss.
Kuklinski gets a job developing film. And I should say, by the way, that he marries his lovely wife. He actually has two wives in his life, not at the same time, shockingly enough, because he that would have been against the Lord, I'm sure. Yeah, speaking of the Lord, I am going to get back to that, but Kuklinski grew up hating religion because of the whole altar boy thing we were talking about. Did you see where he told the story about one of the people that he was contracted to kill for the mafia? He's holding the gun on him, and the guy starts crying. And the guy's like, oh, God, please, God, save me. And Kuklinski says, I tell you what, I'm going to give you 30 minutes. And if God comes down and stops this murder, I'm going to let you go. So guess what? 31 minutes later, he shoots him in the head. God, that is some cold shit.
That is cold. That's what I'm talking about, being on the brink of being over the top. You know what I mean? Like, if you told that story about a real serial killer, you would think, oh, well, what fucking movie did you see that in?
Dude, I get all of this. It was
probably a Shane Black film, too, let's be honest.
I'm sure it was. And Val Kilmer was in it, and he was delightfully gay. Yeah. But, when he, old brother, Iceman, there you go. Iceman, as he's talking about this story, that is like the one murder that he says that he felt bad about. And I love how he doesn't even say I shouldn't have killed him. He goes, yeah, I shouldn't have done that one that way. I should have killed him, obviously.
He said one of the first guy he killed in the pool hall with the pool cue. The interviewer asked him how it made him feel, and he goes, "Yeah, sad. I felt kind of." he said, sad. But then later on, I didn't feel sad anymore.
Love
it. With that thick, New York, New Jersey accent. Sad.
And you can tell that he's telling the truth about that because, somebody who's hamming it up, be like, "Oh, I loved it, the taste of blood." No, he was just like, "Man, you're sad,"
He said, "Yeah, sad. I didn't mean to kill him, but then later on, I didn't feel sad anymore."
He says that in the way that when your favorite player gets traded to another, not even your favorite, when your third favorite player gets traded to another team. I'm sad about that.
Yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah, yes. So Richard, he gets married once. A lot of people don't talk about that, but he divorces that wife. He has 2 kids. But the famous family, if you've seen any of the movies, and I've not seen the movies because I didn't want the movies to affect how I presented the information on this podcast. I didn't want to be like, Iceman looks a lot like Michael Shannon. It's crazy. The famous family, it starts when he meets this lovely Italian girl named Barbara. And again, the documentaries and the movies make it seem like he was the best husband. And I mean, in a way, he was not the husband that you would expect a hitman to be. His wife had no idea what he was doing, but she knew not to ask questions because he would beat her. He beat the fuck out of her. He would literally get up in the middle of dinner. He would get up in the middle of the night and he would leave. And sometimes he'd be gone for a couple days because he'd be carrying out hits all over the country. And his wife says, I just knew not to ask.
Doesn't that fucking tell you something, you idiot? Like, she could have rolled on this guy, 10 years, 20 years prior and saved a lot of lives. He came home with blood on his hands, and I found all the murder weapons. I found a vial of cyanide, but I just knew better than to ask. I just figured it wasn't my business.